Hello on the Rockers. On this episode, it's musical theater meets Trek with Star Trek Picard's Isa Briones and set phasers to stunning because we have my guest co-host Dan Deevy, founder of Gaaays in Space, and me, your favorite host with the sassy most. Raise a glass and let the drinks begin.
Thank you for being
Boulevard.
Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
I'd like to propose a toast.
This is On the Rocks with Alexander, where I drink with your favorite celebrities as we talk about fashion, entertainment, pop culture, reality TV, and, well, that's about it. So pop a cork, lean back, and raise a glass to On the Rocks.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Lord have mercy, it's going to be a bumpy night. Buttons and bows and pantyhose, On the Rocks podcast, the place where we're too glam to give a damn. Like us on Twitter and Instagram at On the Rocks On Air, and on Facebook, On the Rocks Radio Show. Send me an email. Book me for a wedding, funeral, quinceañera, bris. I don't care. I will show up. I will host. Info at ontherocksradioshow.com. You can watch and or listen to our now almost 300 episodes at ontherocksradioshow.com or Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, on the Outlet.tv app, Facebook Watch, streaming with pride on SVTV, and on Channel 31 in Boston, of all places. Hello, Boston. The show is brought to you by fandaddies.com and NEFT Vodka. We love our vodka and our fans. All right, let's get the show on the road. Let me introduce our guest co-host for today, making his On the Rocks return after return, by the way. This is a month of Trek. Dan Deevy, veteran producer, host, entertainment journalist, and celebrity interviewer. Also a proud gay man and a lifelong Star Trek fan. He was meant for law school, but he said, no, I'm going to be an entertainment journalist. And his family was like, what? And in 2015, he launched a massive grassroots social media campaign called We Want Worf, convincing CBS to do a Worf series. So he showed up at CBS with 70,000 mini muffins, by the way. CBS was like, oh, hey, girl. They gave the muffins to the LA Food Bank, by the way, so don't send us hate email. And for the last 6 years, he has built Gaaays in Space, a fully fledged nonprofit organization specializing in activism and advocacy for the continued inclusion of LGBTQ plus characters in entertainment, particularly in the often prophetic realm of science fiction. Since its founding in 2016, Gaaays in Space has hosted 150 plus events, have spanned dozens of major cities in the U.S. Also, last night in West Hollywood, hey girl, we're still feeling it. He's featured over 60 celebrity guests, and over thousands and thousands of fans have attended. Please welcome Dan Deevy.
Hello.
So people ask me, it's like, what is Gaaays in Space? Because it's a nonprofit, but what exactly does the organization do?
Well, it began simply as it was supposed to be one night after Star Trek Beyond came out in 2016, and Sulu was gay with a husband and a daughter, and it was the first time in over half a century that Star Trek featured a gay person. You know, like Star Trek is supposed to be the thing that people look to for the confidence to go on. Things are going to get better. We will make it to the future. We didn't for a long time. And once we finally did, I thought, why isn't anyone making a big deal of this? This is huge. So I planned a party during Star Trek Las Vegas, and I thought, you know what? If it turns out to be me, 3 friends, and some booze, and we toast to this moment, that's fine. So many people.
It certainly was more than that.
It really was. It was. So many people came out and enjoyed it and had so much fun. Nana Visitor came, Major Kira from Deep Space Nine, and I still, one of my favorite things that has ever been said to me was when she said, Dan, I can come, but I can probably only stay for like 20 minutes. And she stayed for 3.5 hours.
That's how you do.
Woo! And so that's how it started. And Nana the next day found me and said, whenever you do this again, I'm there. So I thought, Nana will come to any party I plan. Fuck, I guess this is what I do now.
Yeah.
Because I ain't passing that up. And so, it continued. Now it's been, as you said, 6 years. And so we've been able to move beyond just doing parties and celebrating. We have started working with a bunch of space organizations so that we could go from, showing the world that gays are in media and make it to the future, but also change the world by giving LGBTQIA plus people the opportunity to go to NASA, to go to a space camp, to study, and for them to know, I could do this. This is a real possibility for my life. And since we've started that, I mean, the parties were great. Don't get me wrong. They're always a blast.
A little too much Romeo and Ale, but...
a little bit. It happens. Although at that point, I really wish I had a transporter to get me home. But, I digress.
Well, and it is funny because we're talking about, missions to Mars and colonies, elsewhere. And so the representation is like, well, part of that, whatever initial group of civilians that goes anywhere, we need to be represented.
Absolutely, because, who the hell is going to entertain people? Like, once you get to the moon, it's like, I live on the moon. What do I do? How do I make this fun? And the way you make it fun is you host a Gays in Space party. That's how you do it.
To Uranus and beyond. All right, let's introduce our guest of the hour, Isa Briones, queen of musical theater. From Next to Normal to Evita to Hamilton, she's made her voice known. We also love her from Star Trek Picard, both seasons. Please welcome Isa Briones.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Also, I don't know how you do that. You talk so fast, and you can hear and understand every word. And I was losing breath just listening to you. That lung capacity.
I have to say, so exciting. Number one, to have Star Trek Picard, to have an iteration of the Next Generation and beyond, and then to have all these fresh faces to the Star Trek franchise, and then to find out this huge musical theater past. Like, if my two favorite worlds combined, it's musical theater and Star Trek.
Yes.
And so we have so much to talk about. You actually come from like a family of performers.
Yes, I do. Yeah. My parents gave me no chance. They, no, my parents actually met doing musical theater. They met doing Miss Saigon in Germany.
Wow.
Yeah, and my dad had just left the Philippines for the first time, and he had done Miss Saigon in the West End. He was part of the original West End cast, and then did the German cast with my mom, met there, and they got married in Stuttgart, and then they had little old me, and I just grew up on the road while they were touring. My dad was doing all different versions of Miss Saigon everywhere, and I just got to grow up around the world, which was insane. And then once I was of an age where I could start auditioning, then that's what I did. And the rest is history.
Well, and your dad probably the only straight man in musical theater.
Yeah, truly. Yeah.
And so, were you growing up, there was no question of, should we let her in this kind of world? Because it is a whole different world.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I've talked to them about it before, and because I feel like you hear so much from parents who are actors that they're like, oh, I'll never let my kid do it. I'll never. 100%. Which, now that I'm in the world, I'm like, I understand. I get that. But they were never quite like that, of course. They were like, all right, if this is the world that she ends up in, it's our fault. So, we have to just deal with that. But also, I think they knew that was a possibility and made sure that in raising me and my brother, they, gave us the tools that would help us in the future in whatever path that we took. And I got to, see every version of the industry. I saw them in some great successes, and I also saw our family in some very low lows. And so I was under no guise that booking something means, oh, I'm set for life, and now 100%. I'm gonna work for the rest of my life. It's so not that. And so I think having that front row seat to every aspect of working in this business was so helpful for me and my brother, and they just kind of knew they're going to have their own path, and we set them up the best that we could, and we trust them to make their life good enough.
How old is your brother?
He's 17,
Oh.
which is so weird.
Have him call me in a year.
He's a little man now, and he just finished doing the Chucky TV series for Sci-Fi and USA.
With Jennifer Tilly. Oh,
yes.
Yes.
And I'm just so proud of him. It's so crazy to see him because like I feel like he's grown up overnight, and like it's really weird too because Chucky is part of this like Gen Z is finding Chucky right now.
Isn't that funny?
And
Yep.
it's like the TikTok generation that's really like going in hard on the series. And so Teo is like this heartthrob right now. And it's really weird for me to see because I've got like all these girls like messaging me on Instagram being like, "Hi, sister-in-law." And I'm like,
Oh, that's creepy.
No. And like the TikToks that I see, like any picture I post if Teo's in it, I know that immediately it's going to be everywhere. There he is. He's
There
a
he is.
cutie patootie.
Look at that hair.
Oh, yeah. There's some good hair in this family.
You know, it's so funny. He's part of this iconic, we throw the term iconic around, but Chucky really is iconic in terms of horror film and all the reboots it's had and now with the series.
Yeah.
And then you being part of another iconic franchise. I can't even imagine what like Thanksgiving at your house is like.
It's funny because in the last, I guess it's like last 3 years is where we've hit a very nice time and for our family where everyone's been like working off and on, which has been really wonderful. But it's very funny because we're all working in like genre things.
Yes.
So like my dad's been doing a lot of like horror, Ryan Murphy stuff, and then now doing more like procedural and doing a little bit of this and that, and then now I'm doing like sci-fi stuff, and now my dad is a part of the Picard. He was in episode 2 and 3, so now he's part of the sci-fi world as well, and Teo's doing horror and who knows what else, and so it's just like, wow, we really cornered the genre market here in this Briones household.
Sorry.
Your dad was so good in the series about, now I'm going to forget the guy's name.
Gianni Versace?
Oh God, the guy who Andrew Cunanan.
Well, yes, but yes, it is the assassination of Gianni Versace.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And when I realized that he was your dad, I thought, you know what? He's going to turn out to be the sweetest man because holy cow, does he leave the sleazy, scary, like intimidating right on that screen.
That series, I mean, it's kind of emotional to think that like that is kind of what started this like the last few years of him doing more film and TV, where he was doing musical theater. He was doing Miss Saigon at the time for the Broadway revival. And I remember, there he is.
So handsome.
He's a handsome guy. I remember him auditioning for that, and there was a possibility he couldn't do it because of the show and everything, but they were like, no, we have to get this guy. And when he did that, seeing him just like on screen for the first time in a long time in a role that wasn't the stereotypical like he's had to play every type of Asian except for the actual Asian that he is, Filipino. He's played like everyone else, and it's always been kind of stereotypical, a little bit like kind of two-dimensional, and finally getting to see him play this really like just complex character who's also Filipino. It's like one of the first times he actually got to play Filipino, and just like seeing that, and I actually got to do an episode of that with him. I was a small little part. If you blinked, you missed me. But I got to like be on set with him and see him like embody that really just like frightening role, and it just to me was really emotional to see that because especially now, like hate crimes against Asian American people have risen like crazy, and so it's been a very tough time. And getting to see an Asian man in a position of power, in a position of success, and also like a lot of the time he would get teased for like how short he is or like how small he is, and it's like no, but you see him and he's got a giant presence. He is someone that you are not gonna fuck with, even though he is a shorter man, even though he is Asian. Like you're breaking down those stereotypes, and I got to see that firsthand, and that just like propelled him into every other Ryan Murphy thing he's done now, and always playing such complex characters.
His arc in Nurse Ratched was remarkable, because talk about, we see the breakdown of a man. Very, very powerful. And I love that he's able to switch from stage to screen, so seamlessly. We know some theater actors, it's a tough transition.
It is, yeah.
Now, Picard was kind of like your big first TV, like, okay, we're filming this week after week, day after day. Did you have any transition, like obstacles in going from stage to screen?
I think I was definitely nervous because I had just finished doing Hamilton on tour.
In fact, you were auditioning for Picard while you were doing Hamilton.
Honestly, I had just chosen to leave after my 1-year contract was up, and it was like my second to last day with the show, and I had been self-taping for this thing that Patrick Stewart was producing, and I had caught wind that it was probably Star Trek. And
you guys are so cute together.
Oh, look at us. But yeah, and then I got a call literally while I was backstage. I was about to go on as Mariah Reynolds to sing "Say No to This," and I was like grabbing something from my dressing room, and I got a call from my managers, and I was like, oh, what could this be? They know I'm in a show, and I answered because I had to get on stage real quick. But I answered, and they were like, hey, Patrick Stewart saw your tape and really loved it and wants to meet you and would like you to come in LA. I was like, what the fuck kind of life is this? Oh my God. And I was like, I gotta go do a show. So yeah, and then after my last day with the show, the next morning I flew to LA, did my final callbacks, and it started.
Well, and for our audience, you became the youngest performer in the first touring company of Hamilton. As an actor, that must be a very difficult decision to be like, okay, you're in a show like Hamilton, but to be like, it's time for the next step after, your contract is over. It's always a gamble as to what's going to take off.
Yeah, I think choosing to leave was like a very, very scary thing because, as I talked about, seeing my parents go through all the ebbs and the flows, there's that fear of like, what if I never work again? What if I leave and you never hear from me? Which never goes away because I still feel that now where I'm like, oh no, what if I'm just that girl who was on Star Trek for a second and you never hear from me again? Those fears never go away as an actor and as anyone. But yeah, going into leaving that was a big decision. But as soon as I got that call, I was like, confirmation I knew in my gut it was the time to leave. I was scared to trust my gut. But then once I did, it was like, okay, the universe just told me you made the right decision. Yeah, and then transitioning into film and TV in this magnitude was so scary. But I think the biggest difference was like, I think theater people have a lot of pride in how they can sustain 8 shows a week. It's like,
and
that is not make it fresh.
Keep your voice up, keep everything up.
It's really hard, and that stamina you have to work really hard at. So you have a lot of pride in that. But then getting to film and TV, I was like, man, doing a TV series, it's a whole different ballgame. It's a different type of stamina because you're not doing the same thing over and over again. You're waking up real early in the morning, doing brand new words every single day, and probably from early in the morning all the way until the night. Like usually when you're doing a musical, it's just like, cool, you have 3 hours at night and then you have the rest of your day. But yeah, it was a bit of a learning curve there to build a different kind of stamina for that.
Well, and you also, when it comes to film and TV, people have said you get paid to wait and then you act for free.
The hurry up and wait.
Yeah. Like how, so different from being in a Broadway show.
Yeah.
And because you're not waiting for anything, you're going,
always.
and then you're done.
Yeah.
What did it feel like for you when you got on the set and you realized, holy shit, this is a lot of. You made me wake up at 5 a.m. so that I could get here and wait for 4 hours.
Yeah, that's you have to try not to get bitter about that stuff.
It's like tech rehearsal. We know, like Q to Q,
Exactly.
it's like, oh God,
Which
kill
is
me.
usually just one day, you know. But no, I think with that, like, I think the scary thing about that is it gives you way too much time to overthink. That's the thing that was hard for me. Because when you're doing a musical, a play, or anything, you know the next time you're going in, you're just kind of not on autopilot, but you know everything, the map of how the next few hours are going to go. Whereas this, you're just sitting, you're looking at your lines, and you're like, ooh, I think this is how I want to do it, but maybe that's wrong. Maybe, am I bad? And then you can like all of a sudden spiral out into just like anxiety central.
Well, and with Picard, there wasn't really a roadmap. We didn't know what the show was going to be.
Yeah.
And the storyline was far different than anything that I could have imagined in thinking of what a sequel to Next Generation would be. And you came to the show, a lot of pressure, because everybody was like, Picard, there's some heft to that, and fans have certain expectations. What was your exposure to Star Trek before you became part of the show?
Unfortunately, I was not raised with Star Trek, so I came in with a very kind of like clean slate in that way. What I did know was George Takei. That's what I knew.
Yes. If you don't say gay, just say Takei.
Exactly. And I remember that because my dad did a musical with him called Allegiance.
At East West Players.
Well, he actually did it like way before when they were first workshopping it at the San Diego like Old Globe Theater. And then it went on Broadway, and then it went to East West Players. So wonderful. And my dad did that show with him. And that was the time when he came out with the shirts that said, it's okay to be Takei. Yeah. And he handed them out to all of the cast members, and my dad snagged one for me. And I remember loving it so much. And I was... How old was I? I was like 10 or something, and I should not have been allowed to hold scissors because I was like, I'm gonna make this cool. And I fully like cut it up, cut out the top. It looked atrocious. I still have it. I wore it in my high school yearbook photo, and woof. But,
Oh my God, that's so cute.
But I loved it. I loved it so much. And that was like my first exposure to it, where I was like, oh, cool. Like this has been around since way back then, and they still had like an Asian principal character there. Like that's really amazing. And then seeing and then finding out that he was queer, that he was gay, and I was like, oh my God, wait, and it like blew my mind at the time when I was like 10, 13. I was like, this is pretty cool. And then that's all I knew about it. I was like, okay, cool. Star Trek is inclusive. Done. That's about it.
I'll take it. I will take
it.
that job.
Now, when you got cast, did you like watch all the episodes of Next Generation, or did you come to it just as a clean slate?
Well, in the audition process, it was a very slow burn of what I was allowed to know. Yeah. So I finally found out that I was connected to Data. And finding that, and also knowing that like this is a character who doesn't really know who she is. So I was like, okay, I don't want to over prepare because she doesn't know any of this. Like, I don't want to go in with so much information that like my performance is skewed with all this history that she would not know. But I still was like, but I need to know just get a sense for what this legacy is that I'm carrying on, because that is the most important thing, at least going into it was. And so we only had a couple weeks before we started filming, and I can't really get through that many seasons and that many episodes of The Next Generation, because damn, like 27 episodes per season. So it was still on Netflix at the time, and so I was going through and looking at like whatever thumbnail seemed to have Data in it, and I would like read the description, and if it was about Data, I'd be like, I'll watch that. All right, cool. And I remember like one of the first episodes I watched was Daughter, and I was so confused. I watched it and I was like, but that's me. What do you mean? And I loved it so much. And we were just talking about Lizzie McGuire earlier. Lizzie McGuire's mom plays
Lol.
Yeah. I was like, lol. That Sue plays her, and that was real big for me. But yeah, and that episode, I was just floored by it. I was sobbing by the end of it. And then come to find out, of course, Jonathan Frakes directed that episode. He's the best director in the world.
Yeah,
I love him, and that was no surprise to me. But yeah, that episode really like sealed the deal for me of like, oh, this is really important.
Yeah. Well, when you first got to read an actual script, the full script for the first episode, when you got to the point where you died at like, what was it, page 10, did part of you say, son of a bitch, they said a whole season?
I've been hoodwinked.
That was Jonathan Del Arco. He was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we could get into all that stuff. No, but no, I think at that point I knew I was twins. I actually found out it was my last callback. And the casting director, I was like sitting in the waiting room, and the casting director came up to me, and like she's so nice and wanted to like make me feel less nervous. She was like, "Okay, so like don't worry, like it's just the director in there, and you know, we really want to see like this and this, and you know, like the dynamic of like you and your twin." And I was like, what? What do you mean? She's like, you know, because you're a twin. And I was like, no one told me that.
And girl, they got their money's worth with you. They're like, let's just throw all the characters at her. Let's save some money.
I know. Everyone is always like, so did you get like 4 paychecks? I'm like, girl, I wish. Can you write to them? Yeah, but no, by the time I read the first episode, I was like, oh, I didn't realize how quickly she was going to be gone. That's so sad. And I remember when we had like a viewing party at my parents' house when it first came out. And I hadn't really told any of my friends like really what it was about. And everyone's like watching along, and they're like screaming at all the action scenes, and it's so cool. Everyone's so happy. And then I die. And they're all like, wait, we thought you were in the show though.
We drove all this way for that.
We drove to the valley for this.
It was certainly a wild ride, though. You know, the viewers were just constantly, like I said, I didn't know what I expected Picard to be, but it was so different, and it far exceeded expectations in terms of the franchise.
It's also really strange to watch yourself die.
I
just have to say,
surreal.
that's really weird.
Yeah.
My mom hated it. She was like, I don't want to watch that again.
Yeah, that must be. I mean, you know, growing up, even if your parents weren't in the business, when you do a movie where you die, that's got to be hard to get through. When you do, like, love scenes.
And for my dad,
Papa don't want to see that.
Yeah. I loved looking over, and my dad just kind of like looked away. I was like, sorry, man. But also for my dad playing all these like really evil characters, like it's so funny because he's the nicest guy you've ever met. He's so humble and very quiet. Like you'd meet him and be like, whoa, you're not the same guy. But he plays all these terrible characters. And so I think like that's been kind of weird for him to be like, my kids are gonna watch this, and like, but I just grew up I was a baby watching him be a pimp on stage. Like I was like, Dad, I'm fucking used to it.
Do you know what I love though is even when he plays a villain, and even when he played the engineer, because I actually saw him, he adds this other side of it to bring some humanity. He doesn't play the villain. You know, he brings in where we see where he's coming from, and we see that kind of madness, and it just makes the character so fully fleshed out. And I saw that with you too, in what you do with your characters. You know, you definitely, and I think it comes from theater. When you get a role in theater, you study it, you put the beats in, you rehearse it, and it's a different process than just like, okay, here's your sides for today. We're gonna film for 2 days, and then we're done. It's a whole different process.
I mean, it's not compelling to watch someone who is just one thing. Yeah. So like if you're watching someone who is just a villain, that's not an interesting character. You're not going to feel anything but like, oh, that guy sucks. Like that's all you're gonna think. But like, and that's what I feel like I got kind of a masterclass in that kind of work from my dad, seeing how much humanity he's put into these like seemingly terrible characters. I mean, if you haven't seen him in Miss Saigon, it's not happening anymore, but maybe there's a bootleg out there. You gotta watch it. He's so good, and you find yourself rooting for this terrible person. And so for that, I was like, okay, now I'm playing someone who's kind of a little evil, a little like with Sutra, who she's got her own agenda going on. Like, how do I approach that? It's scary.
She's got a look too. I'm like, girl,
she's
you
got
bring
a
the
look.
look.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Which honestly, that helps so much. I realized doing this how much costumes and like the whole getup really launches you into the character, because you can do a lot by yourself just looking at the script and being like, okay, this is the beat, this is what she's thinking, this is what happened before. But once you're in it, like I was in that costume, in the gold, with the contacts that hurt like a bitch.
I've heard those Star Trek contacts really hurt.
But I had it much better than Brent Spiner. Poor thing. His were like, he just couldn't see. Yeah. I could see a little bit. It was a little yellow, and they were really scratchy. But still, being in that and like having the hair, somehow I was like, oh, I'm her now. Okay, I don't know how that happened, but I love that kind of magic. and the heels too. They were uncomfortable, but I was like, all right, I'm Sutra. I'm Sutra.
Well, how is it that over all this time that Star Trek has existed and being filmed and all the strides they made with the prosthetics and the effects, why can't they do something about the contact
I don't
lenses?
know. Hey, Star Trek. Hey, Paramount or someone, whoever's listening, someone, Roddenberry, please help us, help our eyes.
I mean, so I want to talk about a role. You got an Ovation recognition for Next to Normal. Mm-hmm. Next to Normal, for viewers who might not familiar, it's a very difficult musical. Yeah. It deals with mental health. We had Alice Ripley on the show, and
what a powerhouse! My God,
her relationship with the musical was a little tough because it was so heavy. And then she said after the show, people would come up to her and be like, oh, I have suffered through mental health or a family. And she said that she couldn't see people after the show at a certain point because she's like, I did the role, but now people are putting, and not in a bad way, it sounds bad, but they were putting their emotional stress on top of that. It's a really heavy show. Yeah. Can you talk about your kind of experience from it and how you kind of shook it off?
Yeah, I mean, as an actor, I think we're all naturally very empathetic people. You kind of have to be, and so it's hard to have those confessions and not like take them on and fully and because you want to give it the space because it's so valid and it's so special that someone is confiding something like that in you. But yeah, it can get very draining to take on everybody else's emotions and their past. But with that musical, I feel like Diana, that character, it's on another level for her because she has to really go through so much in one night. And for me, I think the thing that helped was like trying to make the best family situation backstage and after to always have like I think we ended every show with some dancing because we were like, we need to shake it off, especially because I did a couple productions of it, and the second production that I did was at East West Players, and Dee Dee Magno Hall and Clifton Hall were playing Diana and Dan, and they're married in real life, and so they would get that question all the time, like, how do you not take this home with you guys because you guys have to go home together, and yeah, it really just takes like kind of setting up your safe space of like, cool, this is the time when I am this person and it's not real as much as you want to like throw yourself into a character and like really connect with it, but it's like you have to draw a line at some point to be like, okay, I throw myself into it for this amount of time and then I go home and you have to have some sort of, I think, self-care practice when you go home too, to like let it kind of wash off of you. Like I heard that like from a therapist before, where it's like then you go home, you shower, and you literally like imagine all of that washing off of you. There's something to kind of help you draw that boundary for yourself because it can be really difficult with like our bodies don't know that we're acting. And so when I was doing Hamilton, I would always talk to the people who were, like, I understudied Eliza, but the people who were full-time Elizas, they have to go through so much. They have to lose their son in the show. They have to go through all these marital problems and die, all this stuff. It's like, it's so heavy, but you have to just, like, draw the line and be like, okay, that is, and try to remind yourself, like, right, my body thinks that I'm fully going through this right now. That guttural scream when Philip dies on the table, like, your body really is going through trauma, so you have to like protect her and be like, no, everything's okay,
Well, I wonder if that goes back to what you said earlier about when you do a show so many times, it's not actually autopilot that you're on, but it's muscle memory. Remember, does that help in being able to leave the character behind and to realize, okay, just for this time, I'm going to do my job, do it well, but thank goodness for things like muscle memory.
Yeah, no, I think it's obviously known as like a bad thing to go on autopilot when you're performing, but I do think there is a healthy amount of that. There is a healthy amount of that just to protect yourself, because we are actors, but we're also humans, and we need to protect. I know, it's crazy.
You are?
It's insane. You heard it here first, folks. I'm a human, but truly, like, you need to. I think you can get really, really caught up in the my job is my life kind of thing, and like especially as an artist, artists really take their work very personally and very seriously. But you do have to be like, no, there's only so much I can give. And priority number one is keeping myself, Isa, safe, and mentally safe, physically safe. So yeah, you have to sprinkle in a healthy dose of autopilot just to get through life.
Isa, there's this focus right now in Hollywood on racial diversity. And growing up, I knew that if I was going to get into acting, I was going to either play a drug dealer or a maid. Like, that's all I was going to be doing. You talked a little bit about, like, the kind of roles that your dad had. With this focus on diversity, do you think it's actually happening in Hollywood, or do you think it's just a buzzword for now?
Unfortunately, I do think a lot of it is checking boxes, filling quotas and that kind of thing. But I do think that real change will not happen without that being the first step. I obviously the battle cry for diversity in Hollywood is from people who really truly mean it and want it, and the people who are in power are just trying to make money, and some people, I'm sure there are a lot of good people out there. No shade, no tea. But but a lot of it is about, like, we're all answering to someone. And so I do think that even though a lot of this like diversity casting is not always genuine, I do think that it's the only way to get the ball rolling. And yeah, I do think I've having seen my dad go through what he's gone through and hearing stories about in the past, his old agent was trying to get him to change his name to like Chan or something, or because our last name is Briones and we're Filipino, and I get that question a lot where they're like, you're Asian, but like, why is your last name so Hispanic? I'm like, well, do we want to talk about colonization? Yeah. Do we want to talk about that? Are you ready?
Make you a little uncomfortable.
Get into it. Yeah. But yeah, seeing like how my dad has kind of weathered all of those storms and is now in a version of Hollywood where it's part of the conversation. It's so interesting seeing how different generations are dealing with that. Yep. Because I will see like my dad and our really close friend Reggie Lee, who is also a wonderful actor and really big.
And scary.
He's scary too. I mean, like, oh my God, they're all scary. all my family friends are scary. Yeah, but we have a lot of conversations about this when we all will get together and have dinner. And it's so interesting to hear how calm they are about these types of conversations and about asking for what they're worth and putting their foot down. They're very calm and they're very respectful and very like, I'm not going to rock the boat. I'm gonna take one step at a time. Whereas like, I'm like, no, fucking, that's not right. You need to go over and yell at them. Because obviously I'm of a different generation where I'm like, no, this is not right. Injustice. I'm going to scream about it, yeah. Which I need to rein in sometimes. And it's so cool to see like the difference there. And then like the melding of that, of like what I learn from them and what they will learn from me, how like sometimes they'll be like, huh, I never even thought to like ask that question. And I'm like, you should. And then I'll be like, I want to go over there. And they're like, well, but you have to remember this person is answering to this person. And then I'm like, all right, I guess I'll calm down. But it really is. It's been such a long journey there. So there's been so many steps, and I feel like so many people will really judge older generations and how they've handled that, of like, oh, you're not making a big enough difference, you're not calling out the things that you should. But it's like, hey, these people also paved the way for you, so like, let's take a step back there. And also they were doing what good they could in the space that they had. There was not as much space. Now we have a bigger space, and so now we will carry that on in the way that we can. But we can't be like punching down on the people who came before us, who had to do what they had to do. I mean, I know that you've had Gaaays Watanabe on here, and how like he got hate for 16 Candles, but it's like he was an actor who needed a job.
And he was very honest about that.
Yeah.
And he says, it was a funny role that he did. Looking back, a role like that probably wouldn't exist in today's age.
Yes.
But at that time, he was an actor, and he was doing his goddamn job, and he did a good job.
And suddenly, like, also with him, you saw an Asian face.
Yeah.
And like the more that we were like occupying spaces, that's the more we were being involved in the conversation. So like, yeah, it may have been flawed. That's also not his fault. He was an actor who needed a job. And also he was there. So he was there. He paved that way. So like, we can't be dividing that and like making it such a black and white issue. It's like, no, this has all been a process. And we will continue the process in ways that continue to progress with the time.
Well, and I've wondered when Star Trek Discovery came on the air, and we had the first gay couple, and then at the end of the first season, they kill Dr. Culber because God forbid the gays end, happy.
Yep.
But that relationship got so much attention. People were responding, and not just other members of our community, but so many people were in love with that. I wonder if, the high-up suits were surprised by that and began those two characters with the idea of, we got to check the queer box, so I guess we'll do it. And then by the end of the first season, they were like, fuck, we killed him? It's one of the most interesting things about our show. Thank God it's Star Trek.
Yes.
Let's undo
Nobody
that.
dies in Star Trek.
But truly, that's the, like what we were talking about before. It's like they were checking a box in the beginning maybe, but then our reactions, the fans' reaction, just the general public, the people who like actually are watching this reacted and they listened. So it's like that's the constant give and take there. And I do feel like, yeah, with something like that, you have to show it in order for people to see it. I mean, that's such a simple thing to say, but it's true. It's like, if it's not out there, I mean, film and TV, that's like, for so many people, that is our look into the world. Because especially in COVID times too, you're at home, like how you're seeing the world is through your TV. Yeah. And so it's really powerful. There are the people who are like, actors can't make a difference. Like, why are they speaking out on issues? And it's like, no, but like those are the people that you see
entertainment
every day.
People saying during COVID, like you said. I mean, everybody went to entertainment as a way to get through.
And it matters.
And there's the expression, if you can't see it, how are you going to be it?
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to take a little peek. You do some music videos with AJ Raphael, and so we're going to take a little peek. And for our audience that might not have heard your voice, let's take a little peek here.
I don't know if you can hear me or if you're even there. I don't know if you would listen to a gypsy's prayer. Yes, I know I'm just an outcast. I shouldn't speak to you. Still, I see her face and wonder, were you once an outcast too? amassed the wealth.
So you need to go to YouTube and you need to look at the whole video, and there's quite a few videos out there. And talking about, Star Trek has really been a safe space for outcasts. When I was growing up, I didn't look like the other kids in school. I had a single mom. We didn't fit any of the molds, and so our family was the Star Trek family. It was the original series, and so you are part of that legacy. So I thank you so much for and for being such a positive part of Star Trek. I know it must be getting into the Trek universe must be a little daunting because you're not just playing the role. You have the whole fans to deal with. Yeah. You have this kind of energy that other TV shows don't have.
Yeah, it's a part that will never end. Yeah. You will always be seen and loved by so many people. And, the convention scene, the Star Trek family is an actual family, even when the shows are finished. And I can't think of any other show or franchise where that's the case.
Yeah, it's been a really I think none of us really knew exactly what we were getting into. And then our first San Diego Comic-Con, seeing everything, like no one even knew who we were, and everyone was flipping out, giving us so much love, and we were like, all right, if this is Star Trek, I'm on board. If this is the family we've inherited, like I'm so down.
Well, Patrick Stewart is quoted as having said before he took the role, he said, you know what? If I really had more of a choice, I wouldn't have taken the role. And it would have been the biggest mistake of my life.
Yeah, I mean, it's really incredible. I think it's helped me grow closer to a lot of parts of myself, to meeting fans who care so much about these characters and care so much about the show. Going in and realizing like everyone who loves Star Trek so much, it's usually because they have felt othered in some sort of way, because they haven't felt like they fit in, and they found a family in Trek, and it's just like really beautiful. Like when I think about it too much, I start to cry. So I won't go there, but it truly is. It's so special, especially like with carrying on Data's legacy too, where it's so nice to look at that character and see like someone who maybe just doesn't understand why they can't live in the same way that other people live, doesn't understand why life doesn't come as easy to them, and emotions and just social interactions going through life like that. That is such a human experience, and with Soji realizing who she is, like that was such a special character and plot for me to explore for myself as well, because at the time I had just turned 20. I was really I still don't know who I am, but
does anybody?
Exactly, but trying to figure out, like, especially as a young woman, your place in this world and how people view you, and learning to come into your own and be like, no, okay, you can't keep listening to what other people are telling you are, especially as a mixed race person. You get a lot of, you're not enough this, you're not enough that, no, you're not Asian, no, you're not white, no, you're not this. And as a kid, you grow up, and that's really, oh God,
booty call.
My phone. Oh no.
We know who that is.
Eyebrows.
Brian, eyebrows.
Well, I say teeth and jaw. Teeth and jaw.
Yeah. For those listening at home, my boyfriend is referred to as eyebrows here. He's got wonderful eyebrows. No, but yeah, with that kind of character, like knowing, as a mixed race person and not feeling like you completely fit into one thing or the other, especially in acting, I would go out, like, as a young actor, like 9 years old, I would go out for things where as a kid you have to fit into a family. And at that time, interracial couples were being shown on TV. Definitely none like my family. Like I never saw an Asian man and a white woman. Yeah. I never saw that anywhere. And so I was like, I feel like I'm some unicorn here. But then, like, going out for those auditions, and I'd either be called in for like the fully Chinese family or the blonde blue-eyed family. And I'd be like, well, I don't fit into either of those. So like growing up, that was like really hard as a kid, not knowing where you belong. And then finding something like Trek, where for the first time I wasn't supposed to fit into anything. They just cast me because they cast me, and then they were like, oh, you're Filipino, we're gonna cast a Filipino woman as your mom. And that was like, whoa, for the first time, like someone just saw me and worked around me for once. Like, that's crazy. And saw that as an opportunity to employ more Asian people. Like that was like blew my mind. And from then on, like seeing how fans reacted to the character and feeling so seen and so represented of like, yeah, I don't know who I am. I've had many people like message me being like, man, I've been trying to figure out who I am, and watching you made me realize like so much more of myself. People coming out to me being like, I realize that I'm gay, I realize that I'm bisexual, or like this kind of stuff. And I'm like, man, this is so powerful, and I get to be a part of that. Like it's hard to not cry when you think about it.
Well, I'm so excited to see what the future brings for you. I can't thank you enough for spending time with us and sharing your story. Where do you want people to find you and follow you?
Oh, well, I'm usually on Instagrams as Isa Briones. Do I have to spell that? You get
You're
it.
the only one
You'll
out there
it
with that
up.
name. So
yeah, Isa Briones. You can look on there. And that's basically all I do. And I don't really go on there because social media is mean.
Well, or you get pics that you didn't ask for. You're like, what is that? Oh, my Lord. And Dan, where can people find and follow Gaaays in Space?
We are on the Facebook, we are on the Twitter, and
3
we
A's.
are on the Instagram. And I say the because I'm too old for social media,
Yes.
but I have no choice. So you can
Girl,
find
I need to
us.
see you in some TikToks. That's all I know.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Wait, Gaaays in Space TikTok? I'll run it.
Oh, excellent. We had our first TikTok with our friend Stuart, who was on the cruise with us.
Yes.
And he's in his Gaaays in Space gear, and he jumps up and snaps his fingers, and he's in his underwear.
Oh my goodness!
And then another snap, and he's in a different thing. So I thought, maybe TikTok isn't that bad.
Look at you hopping on trends.
Maybe.
For
Girl,
the
I could
abs.
snap all day and it's still not going to be in underwear.
But yeah, so it's at Gaaays in Space. 3 A's in Gaaays, 3 A's in Space. If you leave one out, I don't know where you're going to end up, but I take
And
no
we're not
responsibility for it. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. That's another episode of On the Rocks. Coming up, kicking off Pride, we have dance diva icon Pepper Mache with her first new music in 10 years. Is going to be here live performing, so we're excited about that. Until next time, stay sexy, stay healthy, and more importantly, stay tipsy. See you next Tuesday.
This has been another episode of On the Rocks. Tweet me and slide into my DMs on Twitter and Instagram at On the Rocks On Air. Find everything On the Rocks for free at OnTheRocksRadioshow.com. Subscribe, like, review, and share. Until next week, stay fabulous.